Hi everybody, welcome to Speedway Motors. My name's Tim. I'm one of the techs here. I'm always glad you can join me, especially when I'm talking about something I'm passionate about, and that's old Ford parts. I brought some old vintage stuff here with me today. These are all backing plates for drum brake setups. I get a lot of guys that call me and they say, Tim, I love disc brakes, but I'm building this car that's got to be period, man. It's got to look the part. It's got to look like my grandpa's car. And I'm like, yeah, I feel you, man. I'm building a Model A Roadster, and it's the exact same way. It's got to look the part. So I'm using drum brakes. Once you decide to use drum brakes up front on your hot rod, the next question is which version should I go with? A lot of times it just depends upon what you can find. I brought 3 versions here that are all examples of what my forefathers would have run on their old hot rods. The first one I'll talk about is the 39 to 48. This would be just a standard juice brake, and you'll recognize this. This is something that you see on the front of a lot of old hot rods running around. When you go to the shows, you'll see these things. They're drilled out with cooling holes. You'll see them with vents on them. You'll even see them painted two-tone. They look great. The only bad thing about these is they're not self-energizing. They're a very simple design in the inside. They have the 2 pivot points for the shoes to rotate on. The kicker is you're only using part of your pad with this setup, and you have to push pretty hard on the pedal to get this thing to stop. You can still make it stop well. I mean, I don't really want it to sound like they won't stop well. It's just, it does take a little more foot pressure, and you have to adjust these more commonly. If you're going to drive your car a lot of guys say every 400 miles or so you should get in and adjust these pads. So just wanted to talk a little bit about these. These work great. We sell replacement cylinders and other pieces for these. They go right on your old Ford Spindles, so no problem there, whether it be the square back or the round back, and they just look great. I'm actually going to run these on my car. There are some guys out there that convert these over to self-energizing. It's a lot of work to do that, and the guys that do it, they charge a pretty penny, but it's a nice way to keep that early Ford juice brake look and have the self-energizing feature. So keep that in mind. The other one that I brought is an early Ford. This is actually a 53 to 56 Ford F100 brake. And a lot of guys in the hot rod world back in the early days found these in junkyards, kind of like I found this one in a junkyard, and they decided to use these because they were self-energizing and they worked really well. The only downside to these, if you do want to use them, you can't really use them with a Buick fin drum. They're a little bit smaller in diameter, but they are a big step up in performance compared to the old Ford juice brake because of the self-energizing feature. Self-energizing isn't the same as self-adjusting. It wouldn't be until 1966 where you could pull the parts to make this a self-energizing and self-adjusting setup. So if you have just the plain F100 backing plates and you find all the goodies out of a 66 truck, you can make these self-adjusting too, and that's where it just has the additional arm to run this adjuster out as needed to keep your shoes in good shape. Of course, these don't need to be adjusted as much as the early Ford brakes, and they have 2 different size pads because your main pad's doing the brunt of the work here. So a good setup. If you're using this on your round Ford Spindles, we sell a conversion kit to make this all work. It sells you the correct bearings. It's a snap. There's a little bit of clearance work needed to get around this brake line, but other than that, you're good to go. It's really easy setup that guys have been doing since the 50s. The other one that I brought is a setup that I'm really excited about. This would be like a 39 Lincoln style brake. 39 Lincolns were kind of a step up in the Ford world. They had self-energizing way back then. Ford decided to use that on his bigger cars and not his lower end stuff. So if you could find some Lincoln backing plates, you had the best of both worlds. You had a nice wide diameter brake that would work with a Buick fin later into the 50s, or it works with our steel drums that we sell here at Speedway, and a lot of other parts. But the good thing is you get increased braking power and a really handsome unit at that. You'll see guys drill these out too and make them look nice for their hot rods. But what's good about these is we sell them here at Speedway. They're all brand new, so you don't have to worry about hunting through the junkyard or trying to match up parts. It's all ready to go. It comes with everything included that you need. The only consideration I'd tell you is you got to do some clearancing of your spindle. Some guys will buy these and not understand that right away. It's good to know going in that you're going to have to grind on your spindle a little bit, and I'll show you just how much. This is the spindle itself that's been used with a Lincoln style setup, and you can see this thing would typically start out its life as round, but it's had this flat spot ground in it. no worries. You got plenty of meat on these spindles, and you don't have to worry about that little clearance there that you have to do to make these work on those backing plates. So if you get that done, you'll see how nicely it fits. I mean, then you're in like Flynn to get this thing to go together. So basically, once you get that done, this all goes together nicely and ready for the front of your hot rod. So give us a call. We've got these on the shelf. They work great. I sell a bunch of them to guys and they couldn't be happier. This is probably a good way to go if you don't have some original parts, or even if you do and you don't want to mess around, you know, sandblasting them and repainting and all that. So really glad you could join me today to talk about old Ford parts. Give us a call if you have any questions. We can help you out no matter what kind of car you have, no matter what kind of brake setup you want on the front of your hot rod, whether it be old drums like this or discs. Always glad you could join me here at Speedway Motors. Again, I'm Tim. Give us a call with any of your needs. We're always happy to help.